phrases that we use that actually mean the opposite of the words that we're actually saying. The most famous of all of those is, with all due respect. But I would add, there's another one that is equally disingenuous. And that is, are you happy now? Now, sometimes it comes with the word now, sometimes not. It seems to be more effective when you use the word now. Are you happy now? You can remember when you were children and your parents would say to you at some point, maybe you broke something, maybe you pushed a sibling, or maybe even made them cry. And your parents would say, are you happy now? But I have to tell you, there is another version of that same phrase, which I want to use as the substance for my remarks this morning, and that is the question of, are you satisfied? Are you satisfied now? Is something I heard often growing up, but I digress. The question I really want to ask today is that question of, when are we ever truly satisfied? Do you even know in your life what it feels like to be satisfied? It's a question we have to ask ourselves, not just about food consumption, not just about material acquisition, not just about career aspirations, but it has to be a question we ask of ourselves with regards to the relationships in which we find ourselves. Are we satisfied? And that's why this week's Parsha gives us an incredibly important phrase when it says, like we all know from Birkat Hamazon, Achalta v'savata uveirachta. You may remember it from its melody, Kakatu v'achalta v'savata uveirachta. It means you have eaten, you were satisfied, and now you bless. You thank God for what God has given us. We thank God for all the good that we have in the world. It's not just a statement about food and consumption and our bellies feeling full. We have to ask ourselves the question, what does it mean to feel satisfied? And if we can pinpoint a moment in our lives, if we can recall that feeling of satisfaction, we then have to bank that feeling, because there will come points in our lives where we feel ungrateful, where we feel unsatisfied, and we'll have to remember what that feeling felt like. As this bracha of Birkat Hamazon says, you got to stop for just 1 minute. Stop acting like an animal who goes from looking for his next meal all the time. We have to stop and feel grateful, to know what the feeling of being full feels like. We have to stop for 1 minute consuming. We have to stop for 1 minute using. We have to stop for 1 minute taking. It's a simple requirement, but so hard to observe. Just stop for a moment and be grateful. Slowing down is so important in our lives. I know, I grew up with 3 brothers. I grew up as an adult having 5 children. I ate very fast. And I ate fast for 2 very good reasons. One was I was afraid there wasn't going to be enough food. And 2, because there were other things that called my attention. As a child, it was the ball field. As an adult, it was my job. But it's so important to just slow down for just a minute. It's good for digestion. It's good for the body. It's good for your soul. Rabbi Shlomo Karlin remarked, when one eats in a spirit of gratitude, whether there's much food or little, you'll feel satisfied. Reb Menachem Mendel of Kutz, the Kutzker Rebbe, suggested that the prayer of thanksgiving after a meal is the fundamental mitzvah, because all people should be capable of feeling grateful that the earth has produced food for them to eat. Can you imagine what our lives would feel like? What would they be like if before and after we ate anything, we slowed down, we took a breath, we got some perspective? It would mean fewer meals on the run. It would mean just taking a second to change the way we interact with our world instead of blind consumption, meditative and thoughtful eating. We can transform eating from a physical activity to a spiritual one. We can transform a base drive into a spiritual experience, a meaningful moment. It's in this context that this mitzvah is most instructive. Just one paragraph before achalta v'savata uveirachta, before this sentence, just one paragraph before, Moses instructs vayancha v'yaribecha v'yachelcha et Haman. Just 6 sentences earlier, Moses reminds the Jewish people of the manna that God had provided for them. And then he says, remember to be grateful. God heard you, says the Pasuk, and God gave you manna. God gave the Jewish people a food substance that was supposed to meet every one of their needs. But this ungrateful, stiff-necked people, the same people that kept asking, where's my next meal coming from? The same people that said, I'm thirsty. The same ungrateful people that said, I'm starving. The same ungrateful people who said, I want to go back to Egypt. The same people kept saying time and time again, it's not enough. I need more. I feel so food insecure. So Moshe reminds them, show a little gratitude. Try just saying thank you. Fake it till you make it. But then the most important sentence comes. Ki lo al alechem levado yichya. It's not on food that you survive. It's not on bread alone. Ki al kol motzeh pi Adonai yichya adam. It's from what comes out of God's mouth that we survive. It's not on bread alone that we live, but rather what comes out of mouth of God is what allows us to survive. And more than survive, Torah gives us an access point for flourishing. If you want to survive, then it's enough just to eat. But if you want to flourish, if you want to thrive, then it can't be all about your material needs being met. If you want more than life, than just career advancement or a bigger house or nicer cars, says the Torah, you're going to have to look further and deeper. So the Zohar says something amazing on this pasuk. On this moment in the Torah, the Zohar tells us, Kama kimisadrin Yisrael tikunei legabe kuchabrichu. If you want more out of life, then you have to start imitating God. And what did God do? Baruch she'amar v'haya olam. God spoke and the world came into being. Says the Zohar, you want a more meaningful experience? Stop obsessing over what you're putting in your mouth. Think rather about what's coming out of your mouth. What a brilliant comment, says the Zohar. We can imitate God by creating worlds with our mouths, not by eating, but by speaking. It's a brilliant comment. Baruch she'amar v'haya olam. God spoke and the world came into being. We speak and we create a connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu through prayer. We seek a connection with others. We do so with kindness of words. Achalta v'savata chizkuni says, this great French commentary on the Torah, taking his lead from the Zohar, says, Achalta v'savata mikan anu omrim shalosh brachot b'birkat hamazon. This is the reason why we say Birkat Hamazon. because we create a deeper experience. L'rabot bal habayit, shemvarchim al ha'echila, that a person eats and says the bracha, Baruch atah Adonai hazan et hakol. Chizkuni says, the bracha doesn't say eat, be satisfied and bless, but provide for everything. Hazan et hakol. There are people starving all over the world. Poverty abounds while exaggerated living persists. There is, I say it time and time again, there's enough food in the world to go around. We just have a distribution problem. Our problem is distribution. The answer isn't greed. That's our problem as well. So we just prayed 2 seconds ago in the prayer for our country. Grant us the knowledge to judge justly, the wisdom to act with compassion, and the understanding and the courage to root out poverty. Baruch atah Adonai hazan et hakol. God has given us enough to feed the world. And yet, we haven't figured out how to do it yet. And so one last comment from the Ibn Ezra. Ibn Ezra tells us something, such beautiful words. He says, V'atam ki ala lechem levadok yichya adam. That on this phrase, it's not just on food alone that we will exist, but out of what comes out of God, we will survive and thrive. He says, Rak hakoach, o im hakoach haba me'elyonim. We can gain our energy, not from food, but from what comes from God. God insists, according to Ibn Ezra, to be our partners. That's why the bracha of Hamotzi and the bracha of Borei Pri Hagafen are our 2 essential Shabbat components, because they require partnership with the Almighty. Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Do we really believe that bread comes forth from the earth? It doesn't. Wheat comes forth from the earth. And then we have to grind it. And we have to knead it. And we have to make it into bread. That shows partnership. It's the same thing with grapes. Borei Pri Hagafen says, who's given us the fruit of the vine, but we have to do something with it to make it into wine. It's partnership with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And so the Ibn Ezra says it is a cycle that goes around. The proof is that when we work together, we can accomplish anything. Ibn Ezra is reminding us what it feels like to be hangry. You know how you feel when you're angry, but it's that you're really hungry? Get something to eat, says Ibn Ezra. You'll feel better. You'll feel stronger. And you will then be able to have the energy to help someone else who's hungry. Ibn Ezra says, eat something, and from that you will feel refreshed, and then you'll have the energy to do the real work, the significant, impactful work of fixing the world. You eat, and you get energy, and that energy propels you into partnership with God. And then, just like it says on the back of your shampoo bottles, rinse and repeat. So I say the same thing this morning. Feed your body, feed your soul, feed the world, repeat. Feed your body, feed your soul, feed the world, repeat. Shabbat Shalom. We continue with Musaf, page 184, Chatzi Kaddish, please rise. Amen.
ויעמד יברח חירותי, וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומייכון ובחייכו בית ישראל, ועגלה בזמן קריב, יאמרו אמן.
יהי שמי רבא